Most people thought CATL was just another battery company. A supplier? A name hidden behind the logos of Tesla, BMW, and dozens of electric car brands most drivers actually recognize. But when CATL revealed its new sodium-ion battery, something unusual happened. The EV industry didn't react with excitement first. It reacted with tension. Because this wasn't just about a new battery chemistry, it was about a possibility the industry has quietly avoided for years. What happens if electric cars suddenly become cheap enough for almost everyone? Not future cheap, not eventually affordable. Actually affordable. And that changes everything. For years, the biggest obstacle stopping EVs from completely taking over wasn't charging stations. It wasn't speed. It wasn't even range. It was cost. Most people like the idea of electric cars right until they see the price tag. And behind that price tag is one thing almost nobody talks about enough: the battery. In many EVs, the battery alone can make up nearly half the cost of the car. Which means whoever controls batteries doesn't just influence the EV market. They quietly control its direction. And CATL already sits at the center of that system. That's the part most people don't realize. There's a good chance the electric car driving past you right now is powered by technology connected to CATL in some way. The company became the world's largest EV battery supplier by staying invisible while everyone else competed for attention. Tesla gets headlines. BYD gets headlines. But CATL became powerful by supplying them both, quietly, consistently, at global scale, which makes this sodium battery announcement feel less like an experiment and more like a warning, because lithium built the modern EV industry. Nearly every major electric vehicle today depends on lithium-ion batteries. But lithium comes with problems the industry can't fully escape. It's expensive. Mining it is difficult. Supply chains are concentrated in a small number of regions. And as demand explodes, the pressure only gets worse. The more EVs the world wants, the more fragile the entire system starts to look. That's where sodium enters the story. At first, sodium sounds almost unimpressive. It doesn't have the premium image of lithium. It isn't rare. It isn't difficult to find. In fact, sodium is everywhere. Even seawater contains huge amounts of it, which is exactly why the industry ignored it for so long. Cheap materials usually come with compromises, and sodium batteries did lower energy density, less range, bigger battery packs. In a world obsessed with maximum performance, sodium looked like a downgrade. But CATL may be betting on something bigger than performance. Because here's the uncomfortable question. The EV industry doesn't like asking out loud. Do most people actually need ultra-long-range electric cars? Think about how people really drive. Daily commutes, school runs, grocery trips, city traffic. Most cars spend their lives traveling relatively short distances. Yet the industry keeps competing over who can build the most powerful battery, the longest range, the fastest acceleration. CATL seems to believe the next phase of the EV market won't be won by the company building the most impressive car, but by the company building the most accessible one. And this is where the story starts to get uncomfortable, because if sodium batteries become good enough, the entire economics of EVs begin to shift. Suddenly, the conversation changes from luxury technology to mass adoption. A cheaper battery means a cheaper car. A cheaper car means more buyers. And once electric vehicles stop feeling expensive, consumer behavior changes very quickly. That threatens companies from multiple directions at once. BYD built much of its strength around affordable EVs and efficient battery production. Tesla built its brand around technology, leadership, and premium appeal, while still trying to move toward cheaper mass-market vehicles. But sodium batteries introduce a dangerous possibility for both companies. Someone else lowering costs faster than they can, and CATL has one advantage. Most competitors don't scale. This isn't a startup trying to prove a concept in a laboratory. CATL already has factories, supply chains, manufacturing relationships, and global customers waiting for cheaper battery solutions. If sodium batteries become commercially viable, CATL doesn't need years to enter the market. It's already inside the market. That changes the pressure entirely, because other automakers, Volkswagen, Hyundai, smaller Chinese brands, emerging EV companies don't necessarily care about having the most advanced battery on Earth. They care about reducing prices fast enough to survive the next phase of competition. And if CATL offers them a battery that's cheaper, safer, and stable enough for everyday driving, many of them won't hesitate, especially once consumers realize something important. The average driver may never fully use the advantages lithium batteries are selling them. That's the strange twist inside this entire story. Sodium batteries are weaker in some ways. CATL itself understands that. Lithium still dominates high-performance EVs for a reason. Better energy density means more range in a smaller package for luxury cars, sports EVs, and long-distance travel. Lithium remains ahead, but sodium starts becoming interesting the moment expectations change, because for millions of drivers, affordability matters more than perfection, and sodium batteries have advantages people may care about more than they expected. Better thermal stability, lower fire risk, strong cold weather performance, potentially cheaper production, more stable material supply. None of those things sound exciting individually, but together, they create something dangerous for the current EV hierarchy. Practicality, not aspiration, practicality. And historically, practical technologies often win bigger markets than premium ones. That's why this battery announcement feels larger than it first appears. CATL may not be trying to replace lithium overnight. In fact, the smarter strategy might be letting both technologies exist side by side. Lithium for premium vehicles, sodium for affordable mass-market transportation. But if that happens, the entire center of the EV industry shifts downward toward lower-cost vehicles, and once affordability becomes the main battlefield, some companies suddenly look much stronger than others because the future of EVs may not belong to the company building the most impressive car anymore. It may belong to the company that makes electric cars feel ordinary. And if that happens, the biggest disruption won't be technological at all. It'll be psychological. Because the moment people stop seeing EVs as expensive future technology and start seeing them as the cheaper default option, the entire industry changes faster than most companies are prepared for. What makes this even more interesting is that CATL isn't introducing sodium batteries at the top of the market first. They're not trying to replace the batteries inside luxury Teslas tomorrow. They're targeting the lower end first, the segment most companies underestimate until it's too late. Small city EVs, budget commuter cars, entry-level electric vehicles, the exact part of the market where price matters more than prestige. And history shows that industries rarely change from the top down. They change from the bottom up, slowly at first, quietly, then all at once. That's how smartphones spread. That's how cheap internet transformed entire countries. And CATL may believe EV adoption follows the same pattern. Not everyone needs the best possible technology. Most people just need technology that works reliably at a price they can finally justify. Which creates a strange possibility. The next breakthrough in electric vehicles may not feel exciting when it arrives. No futuristic reveal, no dramatic launch event, no million horsepower performance numbers. Just cheaper EVs appearing everywhere, little by little, until suddenly they become normal. And once something becomes normal, industries lose control of the narrative around it. That matters because the EV market right now is still heavily driven by image. Companies compete on range figures, acceleration times, giant touchscreens, autonomous driving promises. But affordability changes consumer psychology completely. People stop asking, "Is this advanced?" and start asking, "Why would I still buy petrol?" That shift is dangerous, especially for countries and companies heavily invested in the current battery supply chain. Lithium mining became one of the most strategic industries in the world because governments and corporations assumed lithium demand would dominate for decades. Entire economies are positioning themselves around that expectation. Billions have already been invested into extraction, processing, and refining, so if sodium batteries become commercially successful at scale, even partially, the impact stretches far beyond cars. It changes resource politics, it changes manufacturing priorities, it changes which countries hold leverage. In the future EV economy, and this is probably why major battery companies are paying closer attention than they publicly admit. Because even if sodium never fully replaces lithium, it doesn't need to. It only needs to take over the budget segment to become massively important. And the budget segment happens to be where the largest number of future EV buyers exist. That's the part investors, automakers, and governments are all watching carefully, right? Now, not whether sodium batteries are perfect, but whether they're sufficient. There's a huge difference between those two things. The internet wasn't perfect when it changed the world. Early smartphones weren't perfect either. Technologies often win because they become accessible before they become flawless. And CATL seems to understand that better than most companies.